I mean, one of the things you talked a lot about is your team. And it's great to hear leaders like, talking about their team, because I know most of my accomplishments come just because I had some amazing people around me. So I want to kind of get your advice, especially because you guys have got people globally, right? Like, how do you manage a global team? What's your advice and tips for actually doing a great job? Because recruiting people who are great is one thing, but then when you've got them, actually managing them, keeping them, inspiring them, like, how do you do that? What do you advise about that?
That's a great question. One thing is we're so fortunate that we have so many tools and resources that help us do this now that didn't even exist maybe 5 years ago, right? So as a tool, I mean, just getting very technical, we use Slack. I've seen some teams do it with Asana, but Slack is really just phenomenal for managing a remote team. And the second thing is I would recommend 2 books. One is called Remote and the other is called Rework. So Rework and Remote, both written by the same guys, the same company. A company called Basecamp, basically in Chicago. It's all about like, how do you build and manage remote teams? And one of the things we've learned is most important is you have to hire for people that are able to do that. Some people really do need to be in the office. Like, they can't. It's hard. Like, there are certainly challenges with remote teams. It can be lonely. Right? So people just working for themselves. Communication is super, super important. The ability to communicate well, clearly, redundantly, but you have to over communicate when you're remote. You have to use expressive language and emojis. Like, we actually use a lot of emojis and GIFs in our company because just words themselves don't always convey the emotion of what you're trying to say.
Very good.
They can be misinterpreted, right? I would say the third thing is like, just people have to be really responsible. They have to understand that other people are dependent on them. If they can't consistently be responsible, it's not going to work for a remote team. We've had hits and misses within our own team, really talented people, but remote culture wasn't a good fit for them. And so you need to have people that, like, they can do it. They can sit down at a laptop in their home or in their co-working space or cafe, wherever it is, and do the work they're supposed to do. Now, if you can do that, it's actually really cool, because what can happen, like in our team, for example, we can do a bunch of work during the day, and then we hand it off to our team in Malaysia, and then we're sleeping through the night, they're still working.
Amazing.
And then we wake up, and then they hand it off to us, right? And so you can basically have like 24-hour service if you do it right. If you don't do it right, I'll give you an example of what happens if you don't do it right. If like you procrastinate and you're like, I'll take care of this in the morning. So when it comes off to hand off at night, there's nothing to hand off to the team in Asia. And then you wake up in the morning and you finish it. Well, they're asleep now, so they're not going to be able to do anything with it for a long time. So it can be really good or really bad, depending on how responsible you are.
It reminds me of the skyscrapers in Dubai. They build them so fast because at night they're still working, whereas in UK they stop working at night, right?
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Like, tell me about management. Do you have a structure that you follow? Do you have a theory that you follow in terms of actually managing your people? Do you do the corporate style where you have proper personal development plans? You have meetings every single week? Do you use something different? How are you managing like the higher team?
It's a good question. We've tried different tools. So I'd say the philosophy or structure is definitely not corporate, because even within a project we're working on, we may shift people around. So when it's Ramadan, like we have a sister, Nafi, we usually put her in charge as a product manager for all of Ramadan challenge on LaunchGood. But then outside of Ramadan, we're going to put her on marketing team, and so people even shift within the company and the it's kind of like the David and Goliath stuff, right? Like what you may perceive as a weakness could actually be your strength. So startups are like, we're so small. Well, actually your smallness gives you agility. And that's a value. You don't want to why would you put handcuffs on yourself if you're a startup, right? Like that's your only advantage against like the big powers that be is like you can move so fast and shift directions. So we're pretty lean in that way. We usually do weekly check-ins. So we do have a structure. So everyone does have to check in with somebody on a weekly basis. We've tried a lot of different management tools. But the only thing that's been really consistent is Google Spreadsheets. As simple as that sounds.
Okay.
Like, okay, what's the agenda for the check-in? What are the action items from last week? What are the action items for this week? You know, and just holding people accountable. So there does need to be accountability. And I would say it's also something that we're investing as a leadership team more on this year, is figuring out even more effective ways to manage our team and provide them the tools to manage others, because we also don't like to have too many, like, we like to limit the reporting to about 3, maybe 4 people per person. So I don't have 7 people checking in with me. I can't really do a good job. I can handle about 3, maybe 4 at times, right? Yeah.
Great. Have you checked out Traction, by the way?
No, I have to check that out. What is that?
So it's a book by Gino Wickman, I think. It's called Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business. And it's a structure that we've been following for the last few years. And it's really been amazing. It's revolutionized the way we have meetings, the way we actually structured things. It's a really, really good book, and it's a popular book. So check it out. It's not mainstream, but it's going to be, I think, be really good for you guys. And then we use Slack like you do, but then we use Trello to implement a lot of Traction.
Yep. A lot of people use Trello too. Yeah, Slack is best for communication, not good for the process management. Okay, so I'm going to need you to send me that book and put it in the show notes, because that'd be great.
Definitely.
We as a leadership team, every like 6 months, we have a big leadership meeting. We just came back from one in New York City. And we try to read book together, like what you're describing.
Wow. Okay.
We try to do our learning collectively, and that's something I found to be very helpful with LaunchGood is collective learning. Like, it's always good you can listen to podcasts and read books on your own, but then when it comes to try to implement it in your company, it's like, well, you got 20 other people, and if they're not on the same page with you, they don't understand the value that you see. It's a lost cause.
That's actually a very good thing as well, because they say what binds us together is like shared kind of experiences and emotions, right? So like if we all go together through a book or through some sort of resource like that, it binds us together. We all got the same kind of experience of it. So I think that's a really cool idea, mashallah.